let me tell you that this is little bit deviation, I would say, from the last talk by Priya, because this is once again, like Professor Soumitre has introduced to you, one device. So this is also another device, but this is an electrochemical device. It's called solid oxide fuel cell. So I have designed my talk in such a way so that you will get some flavor about this device, because you may not be knowing about this device. So I thought to give you little bit introduction about what is solid oxide fuel cell and its particular design I will introduce before you, and then obviously we will be talking about materials and their functionality, then how we have optimized the microstructure and what is the role of microstructures, then electrochemical performance, and if possible I will introduce before you or show before you a small video to show you that how we have made up to 1 kilowatt solid oxide fuel cell first time in India. So with this, let me start my talk today. Basically, as you know that we are in the era of coal, because still we have sufficient amount of coal and we can have our electricity, all this electricity whatever you are getting now, mostly from the coal based power plant, and some solar has started, but that will take much more time, although India has ambitious program. But let me concentrate over here. We are basically going from fossil fuel era to the hydrogen economy, where you can see the fuel cell is one of the one of the very important candidates. Why it is one of the important candidates, I will talk about that. But before that, let me tell you what is about these two. These two are basically carbon dioxide and whatever we are producing, that will not be allowed at one point of time to live in the environment. So you have to stop that. So for that you need the sequestration or carbon dioxide adsorption. Several R&D research is going on all over the world, and few technologies are also started coming in the advanced countries. So there is a lot of research is going on in this area. Another one is gasification. In the gasification, of course, in our country, BHEL and NTPC, they are the leader. They are doing a lot of gasification work. What they are doing basically, they are trying to produce coal gas from coal instead of using the coal, because our coal quality is not that good. So they are trying to use, instead of coal, they are trying to use the coal gas, and that for that there is a IGCC technology, and they have developed that technology, and they are trying to supply this coal gas through some vendors to all of us, and that coal gas fortunately could be a very good fuel for solid oxide fuel cell, which I will be introducing before you today. So why fuel cell? As I said, that there are three major aspects. One is the environment, it is environment benign, number one. Number two is its efficiency is very high, above 50%. You will always get in case of fuel cell. And the third is for solid oxide fuel cell, which operates at high temperature around 750 to 800 degrees centigrade. So that is basically there is a lot of fuel flexibility. You can use it hydrogen. In general, all fuel cells can be hydrogen, but in addition to hydrogen, in case of solid oxide fuel cell, you have natural gas. You can even use petroleum and many other gases. So as you can see that here, in case of solid oxide fuel cell, you do not have any particulate emission. In case of coal gas power generation, if you know very well that there is a huge huge assets that as disposal is a real problem. But in this case, there is no particulate emission and particulate matter. So there is basically absolutely nil particulate and matters. That is number one. Number two is the gases which they are producing, that is also very, very low, and that is acceptable according to the Kyoto Protocol. Whatever carbon dioxide is coming, if you use CH4 or any other hydrocarbons, then there will be some carbon dioxide from fuel cell, but that is very, very minimal. So another advantage is it's a soundless. You will not get any sound when it will produce this power out of solid oxide fuel cell. And you will be surprised to know that very recently, Google was using for last 5 years in their main plant in California. They are getting power out of this fuel cell, and that is solid oxide fuel cell itself. So the technology is very matured, and it is way to come. But there are many difficulties because of the cost effectiveness and so on. So the major players, they are not coming forward to commercialize this particular technology because of the cost issue. But I would say that millions small units of the range 3 to 5 kilowatts are already in practice, are already in the practice in the households and many other utilities like hospitals, and as I said, that offices like Google's and all. So with this introduction, let me tell you that as I said, that efficiency is very high. Always you will get more than 50%, and you can see that one can even generate megawatt level power. So that is the advantage of this particular device, and this is basically as it is electrochemical device, and its chemical energy of the fuel directly converts to the electrical energy. So theoretically one can say that you will get 100% efficiency, but in practical you will not get that. Why? I'll explain you in my next biographs. So in a nutshell, basically fuel cell is the device which can convert the chemical energy of the fuel directly to electrical energy. So there is no in between other energies, as in the case of coal, as you know that there are two more energies they go through starting from, if you start from the burning of the coal to electricity produced via the mechanical energy. But in this case, it is a direct conversion. So that is the basic difference. The another difference is that, as you know, that we use the battery. So battery is also a chemical device, and in this case, this is also an electrochemical device. It has anode, cathode, and electrolyte. Normally, anode and cathode is sandwiched between the electrolyte, but there are many other other designs. I'll introduce before you what are those devices. So as I said, so 1 kilowatt and more one can produce out of this solid oxide fuel cell, and another one is its flexibility, fuel flexibility. As I said, what different types of fuels can be used as an input for these fuels, and as long as you have fuel and oxygen or air in the air side and fuel in the anode side, you will get power out of these fuel cells. And in contrast, in case of battery, as long as its chemical constituents is there, you will get power, no matter whether it is a primary battery or a secondary battery. So you will get, in case of secondary battery, you need to charge it, what we call lithium-ion battery. But in this case, or in case of primary battery, which we buy from the shops, you have to throw it. So that is the basic difference. So in this case, as long as you keep on supplying fuel and air, you will keep on getting electricity. So that way, you may see that it is a very simple device, because it is an electrochemical device. That's the reason it is very simple. But there is a lot of complications in making it and devising how to make the device. So I will come to that very shortly. But before that, very briefly, let me tell you, as I said, that electrolyte is sandwiched between the two porous electrodes. This is a anode, the green one, and this is the cathode. So this is sandwiched between the electrolyte. The electrolyte should be fully dense, otherwise it will not allow oxygen ion to conduct at high temperature. So the electrolyte is chosen in such a way so that it can conduct at high temperature only oxygen ion. It will not pass any gas or channel through any gas. So it has to be fully dense. So that is the number one criteria. So what is happening basically when oxygen is coming to this interface, all the reactions is taking place. As you know that in case of electrochemical devices, the cathode and electrolyte, here one electrochemical reaction takes place, and another electrochemical reaction takes place between the anode and the electrolyte. So what is happening? So when oxygen is coming either from air or you are directly putting oxygen, so it is basically reducing the oxygen molecule, and it is basically forming oxygen ion, O2 minus ion. So O2 minus ion at high temperature, what will happen? It needs to conduct. Where it will get? It will get the path here, that is the electrolyte, that is 8 mole per cent ETS stabilized zirconia. It conducts only ionic conduction. This is the oxygen ion conduction at high temperature. So it will conduct, it will help conducting oxygen ion, and as soon as it will reach in this interface, so it will combine or it will oxidize in presence of hydrogen or carbon monoxide. Why I said? Because it is basically the CH4. When you give CH4 or hydrocarbon, there is a carbon monoxide also. So it combines with hydrogen. Let us take as a simple case, it has a hydrogen. So what is happening? This hydrogen and oxygen molecule, it produces H2O and electron. So that electron you will get, you will see that it is always flowing. And if you tap here, you will get the electricity. So that is the simple mechanism, but there are certain conditions. The two conditions, as I said, there has to be air flow or oxygen flow in the cathode side, and fuel flow and the anode side. Fuel could be hydrogen, could be natural gas, could be any light hydrocarbons. And the other condition is that you must keep it at a particular temperature. That temperature, oxygen ion can be produced. That in our case, we keep it at 800 degrees centigrade, but from 700 to 800 degrees centigrade, you will always get some oxygen ion conduction. So why it is happening? Because it is basically because of the Nernst equation. You know that there is a very famous Nernst equation where if you have two oxygen partial pressures, I was talking about in one side air and one side hydrogen. What does it mean? That means that you have two different oxygen partial pressures, and if you have two different oxygen partial pressures, and these all are the constants R, T and F, so you will always get at high temperature, because as I said that our electrolyte, what we are using, it can give oxygen ion conduction only at the high temperature. So if you keep at a high temperature, that is the T, and R and F is constant, and if you have hydrogen in one side and oxygen, so naturally you will get some voltage. That voltage is called open circuit voltage. So that is ER. But how ER, as I said that we should get 100% power from the chemical energy, but we are not getting. Why? Because of these three losses. As you can see, there are ohmic losses, and as I said that in the electrochemical reaction takes place in the cathode anode and anode cathode electrolyte and anode electrolyte interfaces. So they are the contributors of the polarization losses. So because of that, we don't get the voltage which you are supposed to get. So in case of solid oxide fuel cell, theoretically we should get more than 1.5, 1.6 volt, but we are getting very close to that, but not always to that theoretical voltage because of these factors. So now I am coming to the structures. So the structures are basically, as you can see, they are a tubular structure. It was by Siemens Westinghouse, started 3 decades back, but they could not produce it, they could not market it because of the high cost. But these are basically the simple one, and in mid of 90s, people started using anode supported solid oxide fuel cell. In the anode, basically the nickel oxide and electrolyte. On the top of that, you have electrolyte, which is about 25 micron thin, very thin electrolyte, and then you have cathode. So cathode and anode is porous, and you have electrolyte. So you have here anode, electrolyte and cathode. So this as such can give you a single cell. But in this case only, the electrolyte is very thin, so it needs some support. So that support is providing by this anode, porous anode. And this porosity of anode and cathode, if you can remember the last picture, last view graph. So there you can see, I said that these are porous and this has to be fully dense. So the porosity should be 30 to 35%. That is essential, so that it allows in air on the cathode side and hydrogen or any other fuel on this anode side to reach at the electrolyte. So that is very, very important. This has to be porous, anode and cathode, and electrolyte has to be fully dense. So what are the materials? I have another slide, but let me tell you, the electrolyte is basically what you can see is ETS stabilized zirconia, that is 8 mole%. It is commercially available. And anode is, we are making by mixing nickel and ETS stabilized zirconia. Basically, nickel and ETS stabilized zirconia, 40 volume% nickel, and ETS stabilized zirconia is 60 volume%. Then you have LSM and ETS stabilized zirconia, that is 50-50. LSM is basically lanthanum strontium manganite. As you can see, this is the perovskite, and this perovskite is used as the cathode, that means this one, this layer, and the anode is basically nickel and ETS stabilized zirconia. And ETS stabilized zirconia alone is the electrolyte. So this is the more or less material structure. And in our institute, as I said, that we are, our mandate is to make the device, 1 kilowatt working device in India. So for that, we are getting the support from CSR, NMI TLI, New Millennium Technology Leadership Initiative program, and they are supporting us. This is the third project running, and we have industry partners like GAIL, BHEL, ONGC, and they are our industry partners. We are working together with the industry, and what we are doing basically, you have to make everything on your own at the institute, because I was just asking about the IPR and all. Our mandate is to have our own IPR, Indian IPR particularly, so that Indian companies can manufacture and they can market it or they can produce it within India. Otherwise, this is the energy technology, and they will not allow us to use their technology here unless until we pay a hefty amount. So that is the reason you need to make it here itself. So this is basically the half cell we produce. Half cell is basically anode and the electrolyte. So that is a very, very, I would say important technology, because here you have to maintain this anode. This is the microstructure of this. This anode is nickel oxide and HTS stabilized zirconia. It will become nickel and YSZ in situ when we will start passing hydrogen, but initially when we fabricate, it is basically nickel oxide. So nickel oxide and HTS stabilized zirconia both are basically oxide. So these two oxides, and on the top of that you have electrolyte that is fully dense, as I said. So this technology we have made it in our institute, and we are producing very big cells, 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, and there is no porosity. If there is any porosity, then hydrogen will leak from this side to that side, and from other side also oxygen may come. So oxygen and hydrogen, if they mix in this electrolyte, so you will not get any voltage, there will be explosion rather. So that is the reason this has to be fully dense. This is very important. So once it is done, then we give this cathode layer. There is two layers, because to reduce the polarization you need to have cathode functional layer or cathode layer, and then you have finally the cathode layer we call it, and collection layer actually. So these two are very important, but these are basically cathode layer, and this is the electrolyte, and this is an example of 24 micron HTS stabilizer. So this is basically the 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter ETS, the single cell of solid oxide fuel cell, which we regularly produce, and this is the building block for making the stack. So, but before going to the stack, you need to characterize them. So what we do, we make coupon cells out of the big cells, and we check how good they are. So this is the acid test, you can say. So in one side we pass hydrogen, and another side we pass oxygen, and there is these are basically alumina tube, and there we have basically these are the glass seals, and then glass rings actually we put over here, and then you test it at different temperatures, and this is the furnace. We keep it inside the furnace. You can see here this is a split type furnace, and these two are the alumina rods, and this is our sample we keep inside this, and we seal it, and then on one side we pass hydrogen and one side we pass oxygen, and then we start doing the testing. So in the testing, what we do basically, as I said, that initially if you keep like that, you will always get some open circuit voltage. That is called OCV. You keep it at a particular temperature, and what you do is basically in one side you pass hydrogen, one side oxygen, then you will get some open circuit voltage. And then once you start drawing current, what will happen at a particular point, you can see that it will cross this voltage. So this 0.7 volt is the limiting. You cannot draw beyond 0.7 volt for a single cell. So this is the international way, measuring this single cell. We also follow that. So where it is basically intersecting, so that will give you the current density in per unit area, whatever the current is going. So here, as you can see, for example, you can have for the 24 micron. For 24 micron, you can have this is the area specific resistance, but the current density you will get is 1.55, and then if you multiply this with 0.7 volt, then you will get the power density, that is 1.09. So one cell can give you a power density of 1 watt per centimeter square in the normal case. But I will show you that how one can increase it. But before that, let me tell you that how to make. But 1 volt or so you cannot, or 1.1 volt, you cannot make a big megawatt level or kilowatt level power. So what you need to do, you need to stack them together. Like you buy two batteries and you put it through a wire and make 3 volt. So 1 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 can give you 3 volt, and you can have much bigger size or much you can have much glow in your lamp. So similarly, in this case also, you need to have some interconnect material. So this is called the interconnect material, which anode in one side anode and in one side cathode. That means plus and minus can be can be connected, and these are the expanded version of the cell which I just now told you. This is anode, this is electrolyte, this is cathode. So cathode should always be in touch with the channels where there is a oxygen flow, and fuel should always be in touch with the channel where only hydrogen will be flow. So you have to make cells like that. That we are doing, and we are producing the kilowatt level power. I'll show at the end of my talk. But to make the more high power or high performance cells is you have to go much more in the molecular level. So just one thing I would like to say here. This is very important, as although I said that as this level electrolyte and basically electrolyte or the electrode interface, the electrochemical reaction takes place. But basically there is a triple phase boundary. Triple phase boundary is basically the interface and the oxygen molecule you have, and there basically electrochemical reaction takes place. So that place is very, very important, because in one place it is O2 minus is forming, and in another place there is an oxidation. So oxidation takes place. So one need to monitor that, and to do that you need to control the microstructure. So I'm just skipping. So these are all I said already. So basically, to keep the microstructure, I'll show you one slide. Yeah. So you need to have this type of powder morphology. You have to control your powder morphology by controlling the kinetics of your powder making technology, and we did that because in some cases you need to have the powder in such a way it has to be porous or it has to be core cell. So with that, if you have this type of microstructure, then see, suppose for example this is the microstructure. These all are basically the nano powders, and there is a hole. There is basically the porous microstructure. So this type of material one can introduce in this solid oxide fuel cell and can achieve very high performance. So that result I will show you. These are some of the analysis which we have done. I am not going into that, but this is the microstructure which we produce, and there you can see that we have different kind of materials has started coming. That is basically gadolinium dope ceria and basically lanthanum, cobalt, iron and strontium based materials. So there we did lot of impedance spectroscopy to find out that which type of material is suitable, and with that idea we have gone what I showed you earlier. There we have increased our current density much more by optimizing the spray pyrolyzed cathode materials, and these are all again cells. But what I want to show you here, that although we have these type of buckyball structures, but after sintering, this is in the powder form, but after sintering at around 1100 degrees centigrade or so, we checked that whether we are losing this particular morphology or not. If you lose, then you cannot use it. Yeah. So here you can see that we are using that type of structure, and it is very, very important. You can see from 900, 1000 and 1100, see the structure is collapsing here. As you can see this tree, if you can see that in this case you can retain that structure. So we need this type of structure. So this is one example how microstructure plays a very, very important role. So we optimized our cathode layer firing temperature, final firing temperature, by doing all these experiments. So by doing that, we can even go up to 5 ampere per centimeter square, and we patented all our results, and and we published also later on. So then what I would like to say that there are another thing, there is a cell degradation and all. We try to check that by introducing several technologies, but I don't have any time to say all those things. But we try to control that. Cell degradation means you are getting some voltage and some power today, but with time it is degrading. So that is not accepted. So to do that, what we do, we normally we normally introduce some layers, and by putting some functional layers, we normally, I have to skip, I think. There is not much time. I am going straight to here. Here, what we do it in the anode side, we introduce some functional layer, and we have pushed our conventional cell 1.7 ampere to 3.7 ampere. But lot of things one need to do, and so I am coming to this. Just I will take 2 more minutes, sir. I am almost finished. So these are the stacks with what we have done. Initially, we have started with 500 watt. And then these are our monitoring committee headed by Professor M.M. Sharma, and we have illuminated this first time in India, and in Kolkata in our laboratory we have illuminated this, and we have gone, as you can see, that this is the 1 kilowatt 1 kilowatt power we got, and we got 70 ampere. This is the results which we got is very good, and at per the international level. In international level, everybody is reporting between 0.5 to 0.6 this watt per centimeter square, and we are also getting around this level, and repeatedly we are doing 1 kilowatt module, and it is ready for demonstration at our institute. We are using all automated cell testing or stack testing unit to do that, and this is our path. We started way back 2012, and in 2016 we have demonstrated this. So as I said, that with couple of it is not operating, I think.